So, let's say it is the bitter winter of 1943. You are a German grenadier, huddled in a frozen trench somewhere on the Eastern Front. The wind cuts through your greatcoat like a razor, but the cold is not the thing that keeps you awake at night. What you truly fear is the sound. The sound of the Russian burp guns, the PPSh-41s. You know that sound too well. It is a dry, rattling buzz that means the Red Army is coming, not as individuals, but as a wave of lead. You look down at your hands. You are clutching a Carabiner 98K. It is a beautiful weapon, a masterpiece of German engineering. It is accurate, powerful, and reliable. But it is a bolt-action rifle designed for a war that ended 20 years ago. Against a human wave charge, the math simply doesn't work. You fire one shot. You cycle the bolt. You aim. You fire again. By the time you load your third round, the enemy is already in your trench, spraying 900 rounds per minute while you are still struggling with your stripper clip. You feel outgunned. You feel obsolete. And deep down, you know that unless something changes, you will not survive the next retreat. The Wehrmacht is bleeding out, and the tactics that worked in 1940 are getting you killed in 1943. You need a miracle. You need firepower. But then, a supply truck arrives in the dead of night, slogging through the mud and snow. The Feldwebel calls you over. He looks nervous. He doesn't shout orders like usual. Instead, he glances over his shoulder, checking for officers or political commissars, before prying open a wooden crate that has no official markings. Inside, nestled in the straw, you see something that shouldn't exist. It looks strange. It looks like a machine gun, but it is small enough to hold like a rifle. It has a stamped metal body that looks cheap compared to your wooden Car 98K. It has a curved magazine that sticks out like a banana. It has a pistol grip. It looks futuristic, and it looks dangerous. Not just to the enemy, but to you. The officer hands it to you. It's heavier than your rifle, but it balances perfectly in your hands. He leans in and whispers, "This is the MP-43. Take it, use it, but for God's sake, do not let Berlin know we have it." You don't understand yet. You are holding the world's first true assault rifle, the weapon that will eventually be known as the StG 44. But right now, you are also holding a crime, because this weapon has been explicitly forbidden by Adolf Hitler himself. You are holding a weapon that was born in secret, built in defiance, and smuggled to the front lines against the direct orders of the Führer. While you are fighting for your life against the Soviets, a different war is being fought in the high command, a war between the generals who know what the soldiers need, and a dictator who thinks he knows better. Hitler wants you to have submachine guns for close range or rifles for long range. He refuses to believe that you need both in one package. He has banned the development of this gun. He has stopped the production. He has ordered it destroyed. Yet here it is, in your hands, a ghost weapon. And as you slide that heavy 30-round magazine into the receiver and hear the bolt slam home, you realize something. This isn't just a new gun. This is the only thing standing between you and certain death. The question is, will it save you from the Russians before Hitler finds out and takes it away? To understand why this weapon in your hands is considered an act of treason, we have to leave the freezing Russian steppe for a moment and travel back to the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's headquarters. While you are bleeding in the mud, a furious debate is tearing the high command apart. It is a battle between the old world and the new, between ideology and reality. The problem starts with the ammunition. Look at the magazine in your weapon. The bullets inside are shorter than the standard rounds you feed into your Car 98K. They are the 7.92x33mm Kurz cartridges. To you, they are a godsend lighter to carry, meaning you can bring more ammo to the fight and possessing less recoil, allowing you to fire fully automatic without the gun climbing to the sky. But to Adolf Hitler, these smaller bullets are a logistical nightmare and a sign of weakness. Hitler is a man obsessed with the First World War. His understanding of infantry combat is frozen in the trenches of 1918, where soldiers took carefully aimed shots at targets 800 or even 1,000 meters away. He believes that a German soldier must have a weapon capable of dominating the enemy at long range. In his mind, replacing the powerful, full-sized rifle cartridge with this weak intermediate round is an insult to the German spirit. He calls it a defeatist weapon. When the generals first proposed this new class of weapon, something that wasn't quite a submachine gun and wasn't quite a rifle, Hitler was furious. He argued that introducing a completely new caliber of ammunition would strain the supply lines. He screamed that the factories were already bombed, the railways were already cut, and creating a new logistics chain for a short bullet would cause the entire war effort to collapse. So, in 1942, he issued a direct order: stop. All development of the intermediate rifle was to cease immediately. The project was officially dead. But the Wehrmacht Weapons Agency did something that rarely happened in the Third Reich. They disobeyed. They knew what you, the soldier on the front line, already knew. Combat rarely happens at 1,000 meters anymore. Most firefights on the Eastern Front are happening at less than 300 meters. At that range, you don't need a heavy, slow-firing rifle that hits like a cannon. You need volume of fire, you need suppression, you need to be able to move and shoot. The generals knew they couldn't argue with Hitler's logic, so they decided to trick him. They continued the development in secret, hiding the project under a fake name. They didn't call it a rifle. They redesignated it the MP-43, Maschinenpistole 43. By calling it a machine pistol, they made Hitler believe it was just an upgrade to the existing MP-40 submachine gun, which used standard pistol ammunition. It was a bureaucratic lie designed to save the project from the Führer's ego. This deception is the only reason you are holding that weapon today. It was built in the shadows, tested in secret, and shipped to the front lines like contraband. You are fighting the Russians with a weapon that doesn't officially exist. But the deception can only last so long. Eventually, the reports of a wonder weapon saving German lines will reach Hitler's desk. And when he finds out he has been lied to, the consequences will be terrifying. The test comes sooner than you expect. It is dawn, and the grey light reveals movement on the horizon. The Soviet artillery barrage has just lifted, leaving your ears ringing and the earth churned into a cratered hellscape. Then, the whistles blow. From the tree line, hundreds of brown figures emerge, shouting, "Ura!" as they sprint toward your position. It is a human wave attack, the very tactic designed to overwhelm your bolt-action rifles through sheer weight of numbers. In the past, this was the moment your stomach would turn to ice. You would grip your Kar 98K, knowing you could only kill one man every 3 seconds. You would pray that the machine gunner next to you didn't get hit, because if the MG42 went down, you were all dead. But today, the weight in your hands feels different. Today, you are not just a rifleman. You are something new. You rest the stamped metal handguard on the edge of the trench. You flick the selector switch from Sicker Safe to Dauerführer, automatic. The Russians are closing in 300 meters, 200 meters. This is usually the safe zone for them, the gap where they are too far for MP-40 submachine guns but numerous enough to swarm past rifle fire. They think they are safe. They are wrong. You pull the trigger. The weapon doesn't kick like a mule the way your Kar 98K does. Instead, it pushes back against your shoulder with a steady, rhythmic thud-thud-thud. It is a controllable, mechanical chug, firing 500 rounds per minute. You watch the tracers streak out, not in single angry hornets, but in a controllable stream of fire. You sweep the barrel across the advancing line. The effect is devastating. The Soviet soldiers, accustomed to the rhythm of bolt-action fire, are caught completely off guard. They are being cut down at distances where they thought they were safe. You are hitting them with the accuracy of a rifle, but the volume of a machine gun. You drop 1, 2, 3 men in a single burst. You reload in seconds, snapping a fresh magazine in without taking your eyes off the target. For the first time in years, you are not just holding the line, you are dominating it. To your left and right, other men in your squad equipped with the test weapons are doing the same. The air is filled with the distinct, heavy crack of the intermediate rounds. The Russian charge falters. The Ura cries turn into screams of confusion. They cannot get close. The wall of lead is impenetrable. By the time the smoke clears, the field in front of you is silent. The snow is stained black and red. You look at the smoking weapon in your hands with a mix of awe and terror. You realize that the rules of warfare have just been rewritten. You didn't need the heavy machine gun to save you. You were the machine gun. The reports from this engagement, and others like it at the Cholm Pocket, are ecstatic. Commanders on the ground are begging for more. They are writing to Berlin, claiming that one squad equipped with these MP-43s is worth a whole platoon of regular infantry. The deception has worked too well. The weapon is too successful to remain a secret. The noise of its victory is getting louder, loud enough to reach the ears of the one man who ordered it destroyed. The secret is about to explode. While you are frantically cleaning the mud out of your magazine in a trench near the Dnieper River, a storm is breaking thousands of miles away. The secret has finally collapsed. It wasn't a spy or a traitor who revealed the existence of your weapon. It was the success. The reports from the Eastern Front were simply too loud to ignore. Commanders were bypassing the standard supply chains, practically begging, stealing, and hoarding ammunition for a gun that, on paper, did not exist. The moment of truth arrives at a conference with the senior commanders from the Eastern Front. Adolf Hitler, looking tired and pale, turns to his most trusted generals. He asks them a simple question. What does the infantry need? What can I give them to stop the Russian advance? He expects them to ask for more Tiger tanks, more artillery, or more aircraft. Instead, a brave general stands up. He takes a breath, knowing that what he is about to say could cost him his career, or even his life. He looks the dictator in the eye and says, "Mein Führer, the men need more of the new rifles." The room goes deadly silent. Hitler frowns. "What new rifles?" he asks. "The MP-43, the general replies. "It is the only thing stopping the Soviet waves." Hitler's face turns red. The deception is laid bare. He realizes instantly that his direct orders from 1942 were ignored. The Wehrmacht Weapons Agency had gone behind his back. The bureaucracy had lied to him. In the Wolf's Lair, this is usually the prelude to a court-martial or an execution. He demands to see this illegal weapon immediately. A sample is brought into the room. Hitler snatches it up. He examines the stamped metal receiver, the pistol grip, the curved magazine. He creates an awkward silence as he inspects the tool of treason. The generals hold their breath. They watch him handle the weapon that was born in defiance of his will. But then, something strange happens. Hitler is not looking at the logistics anymore. He is looking at the aesthetics. He is looking at the violence of it. He asks about the rate of fire. He asks about the effective range. When he hears the reports that a single squad can output the firepower of a platoon, his mood shifts. He sees an opportunity. He realizes that this isn't just a gun, it's a symbol. It looks modern. It looks aggressive. It looks like the kind of weapon that could turn the tide of a losing war. However, he hates the name. MP-43 sounds boring. It sounds like a bureaucratic designation for a police weapon. It lacks the terror he wants to instill in the enemy. He looks at the weapon again and declares that it needs a name that strikes fear into the heart of the opponent. A name that implies an unstoppable offensive. Sturmgewehr, he mutters, storm rifle. It is a propaganda masterstroke. With that single word, Hitler unwittingly names an entire future class of firearms. He takes ownership of the very project he tried to kill. He orders production to be ramped up immediately. He wants every soldier to have one. The forbidden rifle has suddenly become the miracle weapon. Back in your trench, you don't know about the politics. You don't know that the weapon you are holding has just been christened the StG 44. All you know is that for the first time in months, the supply trucks are arriving with crates full of Kurtz ammunition instead of empty promises. The ghost weapon has stepped into the light. But as you will soon find out, a cool name and a stamp of approval from Berlin cannot fix a war that is already lost. By the autumn of 1944, the war has changed again. You are no longer fighting for conquest. You are fighting for survival. The Sturmgewehr is now officially in mass production, but it is arriving into a Wehrmacht that is a shadow of its former self. The veteran soldiers, the men who marched into Poland and France, are mostly dead or captured. In their place, you see the faces of boys who have barely started shaving and old men who should be sitting by a fire, not crouching in a foxhole. This is where the genius and the tragedy of the StG 44 truly reveals itself. The High Command realizes they can no longer train soldiers to be expert marksmen with the Kar-98K. It takes months to teach a man to shoot accurately at 500 meters with a bolt-action rifle. But Germany does not have months. Germany has weeks. So, they build the Volksgrenadier divisions, the People's Grenadiers. The strategy is brutal but logical. If you lack skill, you compensate with overwhelming firepower. The StG 44 becomes the great equalizer. You hand this weapon to a terrified 17-year-old conscript, show him how to change the magazine, and suddenly, he has more firepower than 5 American riflemen or a squad of Soviet conscripts. You see this doctrine in action during the Battle of the Bulge. You are leading a squad through the dense Ardennes forest. The mist is thick, visibility is near zero. In the old days, this would be a death sentence for a rifle squad. But now, your unit is armed almost entirely with StG 44s. When you stumble into an American patrol, you don't aim, you react. The forest erupts. The combined volume of fire from your squad is terrifying. You are putting thousands of rounds into the trees in seconds. The Americans, armed with their semi-automatic M1 Garands, are pinned down, unable to lift their heads. The StG 44 allows you to use fire and maneuver tactics that were previously impossible without heavy machine gun support. You can suppress the enemy while walking. You can assault a position while keeping their heads down. For a brief moment, you feel invincible again. The weapon works perfectly in this environment. It is short enough to handle in the thick brush, light enough to carry all day, and devastating at the combat ranges of the forest. The American soldiers learn to fear the distinctive sound of your weapon. They covet it. You start seeing American GIs dropping their own weapons to pick up captured StG 44s, struggling to find ammo just so they can use the storm rifle against you. But there is a dark side to this firepower. The weapon is a hungry beast. It eats ammunition at a rate that your dying supply lines cannot sustain. The factories in Germany are being bombed day and night. The railways are shattered. You find yourself in the middle of a firefight, your finger squeezing the trigger, and you hear a hollow click. You look back for the ammo carrier, but there is no one there. The trucks didn't make it through the airstrikes. You are holding the most advanced infantry weapon in history, a marvel of engineering that could win any firefight. But without those specific 7.92mm Kurz rounds, it is nothing more than a 5-kilogram metal club. You look at the young boy next to you, who is spraying his ammo into the leaves in a panic. You want to scream at him to conserve fire, but it's too late. The silence that follows is the sound of defeat. As the noose tightens around the Reich in 1945, the orders from above become stranger. It is no longer enough to just have an assault rifle. The high command, trapped in their bunkers, are obsessed with Wunderwaffen wonder weapons. They believe that technology can reverse the laws of numbers. And so, you find yourself in the ruins of a German city, holding an StG 44 that looks like it was designed by a madman. The armorer hands you a device that defies logic. It is a barrel attachment, but it is bent. It curves at a 30-degree angle. He calls it the Krummloaf. You look at him, thinking this is a joke, a manufacturing defect. But he explains with a straight face that this is designed to let you shoot around corners without exposing your head. You are fighting in the rubble now, house to house, room to room. Sticking your head out of a window means instant death by a sniper. So, you clamp this bent barrel onto your rifle. It includes a periscope sight, so you can see around the bend. When you pull the trigger, the laws of physics seem to break. The bullet travels down the rifling, hits the curve, and shatters into fragments due to the centrifugal force, spraying a shotgun-like blast around the corner. It is a weapon born of pure fear. It is an admission that the German soldier can no longer face the enemy head-on. You are now fighting like a cornered rat, hiding behind walls, spraying metal blindly into the street. The barrel wears out after just a few hundred rounds, but it doesn't matter. You probably won't live long enough to wear it out. But the madness doesn't stop there. Night falls, and while the rest of your squad tries to sleep, you are chosen for a special mission. You are given a massive wooden crate containing a device codenamed Vampire the Vampire. You strap a heavy battery pack onto your back. It weighs 13 kilograms and looks like a backpack from a gas generator. You attach a massive, black telescopic sight to the top of your StG 44. It makes the weapon incredibly top-heavy and clumsy. You feel like a pack mule, burdened by wires and glass. But when you switch it on and look through the scope, your breath catches in your throat. The world turns green and ghostly. For the first time in military history, a soldier is using an active infrared night vision scope in combat. You can see them. You can see the Soviet soldiers moving in the darkness 100 meters away. They think they are invisible. They are smoking cigarettes, talking, completely unaware that you are watching them like a predator from another century. You engage. The muzzle flash is hidden by the flash hider. To the Russians, the fire is coming from nowhere. You are the night hunter, a technologically superior warrior wielding a weapon that belongs in the 21st century. But the irony is crushing. You are using a space-age infrared scope to defend a pile of rubble. You are carrying the world's most advanced electronics on your back, yet you haven't eaten a proper meal in 3 days. You have the vampire, but you have no gasoline for the trucks, no medicine for the wounded, and no hope of victory. It is the ultimate paradox of the late war Wehrmacht, futuristic lethality in the hands of a starving army. The final months of the war are a blur of retreats. You are moving backward, always backward, through the burning ruins of the Reich. And as the discipline dissolves, you begin to see something that turns your stomach. You see your own weapon, the StG-44, pointing back at you. In the chaos of the retreat, thousands of these rifles are being left behind. You run out of ammo, you toss the gun into a ditch, and you run. But the Americans and the Russians do not leave them there. To an American GI, tired of lugging a heavy BAR or limited by the 8-round clip of his M1 Garand, your storm rifle is a revelation. It is lighter, faster, and holds 30 rounds. There are documented reports of entire American squads discarding their standard-issue weapons to pick up captured StG-44s. They scavenge the dead bodies of your comrades for magazines. They become scavengers of your technology. It is the ultimate insult. You are pinned down in a cellar, terrified, and the sound of automatic fire cracking over your head is the distinct, heavy thud of the StG-44. But it is not German support fire. It is an American paratrooper using your own genius against you. On the Eastern Front, the reaction is different. The Soviets don't just want to use it, they want to understand it. When a Russian soldier captures an StG-44, it is rushed to the rear lines. Soviet engineers disassemble it with a mix of mockery and admiration. They laugh at the stamped metal, calling it Hitler's tin can, but they fall silent when they test it. They realize that this tin can renders their submachine guns obsolete. Somewhere in a Soviet hospital, a wounded tank commander named Mikhail Kalashnikov is listening to his comrades complain about how the Germans have automatics while they have bolt-action rifles. The seed is planted. The StG-44 is no longer just killing Russians, it is teaching them. Every time you drop your rifle in the mud, you are handing the blueprint of the future to the enemy. But for you, the individual soldier, the weapon has become a curse. The storm rifle marks you. If you are captured by the resistance or angry Soviet troops, holding an StG-44 identifies you as an elite soldier, a fanatic, or a member of the SS. It removes the "I am just a simple conscript" excuse. The weapon that was supposed to save your life is now a magnet for execution. You start to see men in your unit deliberately smashing their StG-44s against trees before surrendering or swapping them for Kar 98Ks from dead bodies. They want to look harmless. They want to look like the old men of the Volkssturm, not the futuristic warriors of the Sturmgewehr. The pride you felt back in 1943 when you first held the ghost weapon is gone. Now, it is just evidence. Evidence that you fought too hard, killed too many, and held on to the dream of victory long after it had turned into a nightmare. It is May 1945. The guns have finally fallen silent. You are sitting in a prisoner of war camp, watching a pile of surrendered weapons being crushed by an Allied bulldozer. You see the twisted metal of the StG-44s disappearing under the tracks, and you feel a strange sense of relief. The war is over. The storm rifle failed to save the Reich. But while you are rotting in a camp, a different kind of capture is happening in the industrial heart of Germany. In the city of Suhl, the home of the StG, Hainel factory, where the StG-44 was born, American troops are moving fast. They are not looking for soldiers. They are looking for blueprints, prototypes, and tooling. They know that the war with Germany is over, but the war with the Soviet Union is just beginning. They want the secrets of the assault rifle before the Red Army arrives. However, politics is a messy game. Under the agreement of the Allied powers, the city of Suhl falls within the Soviet occupation zone. The Americans have to pull out, but before they leave, they grab what they can. Yet, the real prize remains. When the Red Army marches into Suhl, they don't just occupy the factory, they dismantle it. In a move of industrial ruthlessness, the Soviets order the entire assembly line of the StG-44 to be packed up. Every machine, every stamp, every technical drawing is crated and shipped east. But they take something even more valuable than the machines. They take the mind. Hugo Schmeisser, the brilliant designer often credited with the development of the StG-44, is arrested. He is not treated like a standard prisoner. He is a high-value asset. Along with hundreds of other German weapons experts, He is invited, which is a polite word for forced to travel to the Soviet Union. He is taken to Ijevsk, a closed military city in the Urals. Here lies one of history's great ironies. You, the German soldier, used the StG 44 to kill Russians. Now, the man who designed your weapon is sitting in a Russian factory, surrounded by Soviet engineers, being forced to work for the enemy. Historians still debate exactly what happened in Ijevsk. Did Schmeisser directly help Mikhail Kalashnikov design the AK-47? The Soviets always denied it, claiming the AK was a purely Russian invention born from the mind of a tank mechanic. But if you strip down an StG 44 and place it next to an AK-47, the visual DNA is undeniable. The gas system is different, the bolt is different, but the concept, the idea of a stamped metal, mass-produced assault rifle firing an intermediate cartridge is identical. Schmeisser spent years in the Soviet Union, his knowledge drained like a battery until it was empty. Back in Germany, the StG 44 vanished. The new East German police force used them for a while, renaming them to erase their Nazi past, but eventually they were phased out. The weapon that Hitler thought would conquer the world was now just a ghost. Its soul transferred into the millions of AK-47 seconds that were about to flood the world. The StG 44 was dead, but its children were preparing to fight the Cold War. While the Soviets were busy extracting the secrets of Hugo Schmeisser in the Urals, the Western Allies were making a catastrophic mistake. In the years immediately following the war, American ordnance officers analyzed the StG 44. They looked at the stamped metal and called it cheap. They looked at the intermediate cartridge and called it weak. Blinded by their own victory and the tradition of marksmanship, the US Army decided that the future still belonged to heavy, long-range battle rifles. They adopted the M14, a heavy, uncontrollable weapon that was essentially a modernized Garand. They ignored the lesson you had learned in the blood of the Eastern Front. It would take another war, Vietnam, for the West to finally understand what you knew in 1944. When American soldiers found themselves outgunned by the AK-47 inches the jungle, they panicked. They realized that volume of fire was more important than long-range accuracy. Only then did they rush the M16 into service. The M16 was different in design, but the philosophy was identical to the StG 44, a select-fire weapon, an intermediate cartridge, and a focus on suppression. It took the world's greatest superpower 20 years to catch up to a weapon built in a bombed-out German factory. But the DNA of the StG 44 didn't just survive in the AK-47 and the M16. It survived in Germany itself. After the war, many German engineers who escaped the Soviets fled to Spain. There, working at a company called SetMe, they continued refining the assault rifle concept. They took the roller-delayed blowback mechanism, a system developed by Mauser for the StG 45 prototype, and perfected it. When West Germany was allowed to rearm in the 1,950 seconds, these engineers returned home. They brought their designs to a new company, Heckler & Koch. The result was the G3 rifle. If you look closely at a G3, or its famous younger brother, the MP5, you are looking at the direct mechanical descendants of the late-war German weapons programs. The stamped metal construction, the mass production techniques, the ergonomics, it is all there. The StG 44 was the grandfather of the entire Heckler & Koch empire. Today, look at any modern army. Look at the US Marines with their M27S, the Russians with their AK-12 seconds, or the British with their L-85S. Every single soldier on the modern battlefield is carrying a weapon that fits the exact definition created by Hitler's forbidden rifle, a select-fire carbine using intermediate ammunition. The StG 44 did not win the war for Germany. It came too late, in too few numbers, to a regime that was already doomed, but it won the argument. It proved that the old ways of war were dead. It proved that a single infantryman could wield the firepower of a squad. When you pick up a video game controller today and choose an assault rifle, or when you watch news footage of conflicts in the Middle East or Ukraine, you are seeing the ghost of the StG 44. It is the weapon that died in 1945, only to be resurrected in the hands of every soldier who has marched to war since. But there is one final chapter to this story, a chapter that brings us back to the human element, to the graves of the men who first held this weapon. Because for all its technological brilliance, the StG 44 left a legacy of blood that can never be washed away. So, we come to the end of the journey. The snow of the Eastern Front has long since melted. The ruins of Berlin have been rebuilt. The Third Reich, which promised to last for 1,000 years, burned to ash in just 12. And what remains of the weapon that was supposed to save it? If you visit a museum today, you might see an StG 44 sitting behind glass. It looks heavy, crude, and scarred by time. To the casual tourist, it is just an old gun. But to those who know, it is the most influential piece of steel ever forged. It is the patient zero of modern warfare. It is the grandfather of the M16, the AK-47, and every assault rifle that has shaped the history of the 20th and 21st centuries. But there is a tragedy hidden in that metal. The StG 44 was a triumph of engineering, a stroke of genius that solved the riddle of infantry combat. Yet, it served a regime of absolute evil. It was a weapon designed to prolong a war that was already lost, a tool given to boys and old men to buy a few more weeks for a criminal government. It did not save lives. It only industrialized death. And what about you? The soldier we imagined at the beginning of this story, the young man shivering in the trench, holding the forbidden rifle and feeling a spark of hope. History tells us that you probably didn't make it home. Maybe you fell in the Halby pocket, clutching your empty weapon as the ammunition finally ran out. Maybe you were captured and disappeared into the gulags of Siberia. Or maybe, just maybe, you survived. Maybe you lived long enough to see the world change. You lived to see the armies of the world adopt the very concept you tested in the mud and blood of 1943. You would see conflicts in Vietnam, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and you would recognize the sound, that distinctive, rhythmic chatter of automatic fire. It is the sound of the storm that Hitler unleashed, a storm that never really stopped. The StG 44 opened a Pandora's box. It made killing easier, faster, and more efficient for the individual soldier. It democratized firepower. Today, the StG 44 is a collector's item, worth tens of thousands of dollars. People admire its stamped receiver, its clever gas system, its historical significance, but we must never forget the hands that held it. We must never forget the desperation, the cold, and the fear. The story of the StG 44 is not just about a gun, it is a warning. It is a reminder that technological superiority is not a substitute for morality. It is a reminder that no Wunderwaffen, no matter how advanced, can fix a broken system or save a doomed cause. The weapon changed the world, yes, but the price of that change was paid in the blood of millions. The forbidden rifle is silent now, but if you listen closely to the news tonight, you can still hear its echoes. The storm continues.